r/AskReddit. What is surprisingly still legal in 2019? Civil forfeiture, in which the government can take your assets if you're just suspected of a crime, under the pretense that said assets were related to the crime. Charges may never be filed, but the assets may be kept if you can't definitively prove that the assets were not involved in any crime. You essentially have to prove your assets' innocence in order to get them back. Guilty until proven innocent. Alright, you're innocent, but your shit is guilty f. The argument is literally we're taking legal action against your stuff. Your stuff doesn't have constitutional protections like people do. Being an elderly driver. No, I do not mean 85-year-old people who are borderline. In 2019 in the US you could be 107 and bedbound with a still legitimate driver's license. You can't walk, but you can still cruise around in your 2002 Mercury if you want. What's interesting to me is that if someone keeps practicing driving at a higher level they can keep going basically until they die, yet so many elderly people don't put in an effort, leading to them slowly declining in skill until they can't even commute safely. There's a 93-year-old that does club races at our local track, which is rated one of the most dangerous tracks in the world, and he does it year after year without incident. He's old enough that he has to get a physical mental checkup every 6 months to keep his racing license. I only have to do that every 5 years. That's pretty much my dad. He's 84 and raced his entire life. I guarantee he's more attentive and has more driving ability than 99% of people on the road. MLMs. My wife got invited to one of these presentations. It came with a free breakfast bar. We both know it's BS, but I was jealous that I couldn't go for the entertainment since I had work. She was updating me the whole time. Took over 1 hour and 45 minutes until they mentioned the product. Some sort of aloe vera drink that is miraculous. Even sillier since it grows wildly around here everywhere. Had a roommate that was selling Lonavie. That shit was like $40 or $50 bottle. They were touting how it had all these juice superfoods and that's why it was so expensive. I did some searching and found you could end up with about the same variety of superfoods if you bought 3 different flavors of naked juice. Now, granted, the naked juices were $10 EA, so you'd been in $30. But you also now had 3x more juice for like $10, 15 less. While slavery is illegal, there is still a huge amount of things which we buy that are produced by slaves or by people paid a tiny wage, but who are essentially still slaves in all but name. I really wish that there was some kind of law in place to punish the sale of goods produced by slavery, child labor, or workers without adequate pay and adequate rights. The big shiny download button, which is really not the download button, and when clicked, takes you to this page which claims that my Mac has been infected by a virus and now I need to download their software to save it. Always gotta hover your mouse over all 6 download buttons to check the URLs. It's so annoying. From my experience, the real download button is almost always the least flashy one. Internet provider monopolies. Looking at you, Canada. For-profit prisons. 100 years after they finally end, they'll be looked upon with the same horror we look at, say, using children as chimney sweeps. My state outlawed them. Yay, Colorado. Pugs. Breeding pugs. Those poor animals go through so much pain, literally living is suffering. Overbred. Overmutated. There needs to be license or temp breeding ban on them. Any breeding farms really. Pugs are just one of the more extreme examples. We adopted a pug after her owner died. She always had breathing issues and would get breathless after a few minutes walking. We gave her the best life we could and she lived to be 14, which is a pretty good age for a pug. Poor thing died of a heart attack in the end. Edit. I should also defend her previous owner. She was an unwanted pet and the owner took her in and cared for her. That pug was devastated when she passed away. Don't forget puppy mills. People want puppies, so pet stores buy pups and the ones that don't get sold are shipped off to the pound to make room for newer puppies. Only having 10 minutes with an attorney if you can't afford a lawyer. That is a budget problem and is really terrible. Public defenders' offices all over the country are overworked and underfunded. Not that it makes it okay, but that 10 minutes is better than nothing. Payday loans. Roommate is considering one. I've told her I'll gladly give her the money she needs. Just please, for the love of duck, don't get herself wrapped up in those. That $800 you need very quickly becomes $2,000 they demand. My dad actually got one of those loans from a title loan place. He gave them the title of his 3-4-year-old F-150 as collateral for a $1,000 loan with over 100% interest. Kids using UV tanning beds, some states in the US. Kids using UV tanning beds, some states in the US. UV tanning beds, cancer coffins. Pharmaceutical advertisements. And yet if a sales rep gives so much as a free pen to a doctor, it is considered a stark violation. $3 million Super Bowl commercial advertising to beer drinking 20-30-year-olds. Perfect. Wait, really? What about the free lunches every single day from the farm reps? According to this source, in Calgary, if released from prison, it is required that you are given a handgun with bullets and a horse, so you can ride out of town. I understand that shouldn't be a thing, but that is kinda badass. I imagine there was a time where if you didn't have those things, your chances of ending up dead or back in prison were pretty high, or they just wanted recently released prisoners out of town. The child marriage in the US. This is true in most of the world. I have loved ones who were engaged to be married at the ages of 8 and 11. It's not right or appropriate, but it has always been the case in the vast majority of countries during the vast majority of centuries that children are married. It's not just the United States. It's honestly the entire world except for maybe 6 or 8 countries where it doesn't happen. Even in countries where it is illegal, it still happens for religious and cultural reasons every day. Somebody asked which in countries child marriage doesn't happen but deleted the question. These are my guesses. Liechtenstein, Iceland, Monaco. In other words, probably very small countries with a pretty unified but small culture. Price gouging on life-saving meds, insulin, EpiPens, cancer drugs, etc. Bestiality is still legal in 10 states. Always wondered why bestiality becomes bestiality when discussing it as a practice. Guess I'll find out next visit stateside. It took me a second to get this was a joke and already started explaining. For the case, though, that someone comes by now and actually wonders why that is. The word is derived from Latin bestia, wild animal I believe. Telemarketing, on top of political. I got on some list and get 25/week asking if I want to sell my house. GRRR. For real. Telemarketing was absolutely out of control in the late 90s. Then they introduced the no-call lists, which helped but didn't solve the problem. Then people switched to cell phones and ditched landlines, and for a while I thought the problem was pretty much solved. Now I get like a dozen scam-likely calls a day and the FCC doesn't do shit about it. I've cut down a lot of these by blocking numbers as they come in. Hasn't solved the problem obviously since they are always new or fudge, but I'd say in 5 years of blocking they've gone down by 90%. Child pageants. There's always a diddler involved at some point. I wouldn't do it with anybody younger than my daughter, and no little kids. Got to be big. Older than my wife. Older than my daughter. I know it says 2019, but Sweden just recently, 2016, made identity theft illegal. No joke. And in Sweden everyone's SSN, essentially the equivalent of SSN at least, is public information. Usually you just aren't interesting enough for someone to make a look up on you to find out your SSN. Edit. As someone else pointed out below, we don't have the same type of system like the US. We use YYMMDDXXXX, where the X's are unique to you and your dog. It isn't quite the same, but the impact is essentially the same. As far as I am aware, your tax information is also public in Sweden, legit. Any Swedish national can go look at the tax information of another. Indeed it is so. You can also check who owns a car checking their plates. You can also find out if someone has been in court, what for, and what the verdict was. Using tear gas against enemy combatants, illegal. Using tear gas against your own citizens, totally legal. Well, Presumably the tear gas isn't going to be followed by flamethrowers in one of the cases, but it's becoming harder and harder to say these days. Scalping, particularly the large-scale schemes perpetuated by Ticketmaster or artists in an attempt to make a few extra dishonest bucks. For a second I thought you meant taking the scalps of natives and turning them in for a bounty, lol. LOL. Yeah, pretty sure you'd get in a bit of trouble for that. Herbalife. In my opinion, the whole industry should be banned. MLM is illegal, just poorly enforced. I believe John Oliver did a piece on it. Edit. Multi-level marketing. Friends and family almost got roped in by these crap pyramid scheme bullshit companies. John Oliver segment on it. YouTube link. Thanks you /Mr. Emid 50.